Good morning. The story you are about to see is true. It is about a man called Luke, found sitting in the Seabus depot in Vancouver with a note pinned to his jacket saying, "This is Luke. He needs help. Please notify the police." First, this little extract from my interview with Luke as we chatted yesterday afternoon. What can you tell me about yourself, Luke? When's your birthday?
August the 4th.
August the 4th. What year?
I don't know.
Any idea how old you are?
No, the man at the doctor at Woodland says I was 81.
He was pulling your leg. You're more like maybe 45 or 50.
I don't know this.
Or 51. Now, look, before you were left at the Seabus, with whom had you been staying?
The Grammans.
The who?
The Grammans.
The Grammans.
Yes.
Was that the name of the couple?
Was the old cold man, old woman.
Old man and old woman.
Yes. I think they knowed my brother from Montreal.
They knowed your brother from Montreal. How long have you been out on the West Coast?
Old was, God, this much Christmases.
This much? 5 and 5 Christmases?
Or more than this, maybe.
Maybe 10 Christmases
more
you've been
this.
out here?
More than this, yeah.
It's a sad but true story, and it's touching. Now, we've got two politicians here this morning. One from the good old NDP, Lorne Nystrom, from Yorkton-Melville. He was in trouble with the party over his principles a little while ago. We'll see where he stands now. And a distinguished French-Canadian political writer and broadcaster by the name of, it's not an easy name for me, Solange Chaput-Rolland. And we've done broadcasts before, and she'll tell us the truth about Quebec, and maybe the truth about Trudeau. But first, after the break, the man who came from nowhere. I met the man Luke in a delightful house run by the Vancouver-Richmond Association for the Mentally Handicapped, where he's being cared for now until they find for him a permanent home. We just want to try and find out who were the people who looked after him after his brother and sister disappeared. Here's my interview with Luke. The man you're about to meet does not suffer from loss of memory, not from amnesia as such. He has, however, led a very, very sheltered life, closely guarded by a brother and a sister. When the dramatic turn of events for us to know about is that November the 25th, he was found in the Seabus in Vancouver with a note pinned to his lapel saying, "This is Lucas Kuhlmann. He needs help." And he was given help, and he's had help since then. But there are a number of things that Luke wants to know about himself and his brother and his sister. Luke, when you were left sitting there at the Seabus with the note that you had, what was going to happen to you? Did you know that you'd been left alone with nowhere to go?
Oh, yeah, they say somebody comes.
They said somebody would come?
Yes.
What can you tell me about yourself, Luke? When's your birthday?
August the 4th.
August the 4th. What year?
I don't know.
Any idea how old you are?
No, the man at the doctor at Woodland says I was 81.
He was pulling your leg. You're more like maybe 45 or 50.
I don't know this.
Or 51. Now, look, before you were left at the Seabus, with whom had you been staying?
The Grammans.
The who?
The Grammans.
The Grammans.
Yes.
Was that the name of the couple?
Was the old cold man, old woman.
Old man and old woman.
Yes. I think they knowed my brother from Montreal.
They knowed your brother from Montreal. How long have you been out on the West Coast?
Old was, God, this much Christmases.
This much? 5 and 5 Christmases?
Or more than this, maybe.
Maybe 10 Christmases
more
you've been
this.
out here?
More than this, yes.
And when you were out here for all these years, where did you live with your brother and your sister?
We come in a bus house from Vancouver, to Toronto. From Toronto, we come here.
10 years ago.
Oh, I guess more than this.
A bus house. Was that a big Bluebird kind of van?
It was a big one, yes, yes.
And did you live in this house?
Yes, we live in this, exactly. We travel and just live in it. You know,
it was
nice.
Big enough for the three of you?
Oh, yes, it has a bathtub for my sister, you know. My brother makes this for her.
Your brother puts a bathtub for your sister,
yes,
and all three of you came out from Toronto?
Yes, yes.
And on your way out, where did you go?
We go to Calgary, and then we go to the ice mountains and Jasper, you know, and come down the river. That is so nice.
So you came out as tourists?
No, we come out here to live.
You came out here to live? The three of you?
Yes.
What's your brother's name?
Bert.
Bert.
That's his little name.
His little name. His full name being what?
Bertolt.
Bertolt. And your sister's name?
Greta, the little name.
What's her big name?
Margareta.
Margareta. And what's the last name?
Kuhlmann. We always Kuhlmanns.
Always Kuhlmanns.
Yes.
Kuhlmanns. Do you remember your mother and
Kuhlmann.
father?
No.
No.
No, the old folks, my sister says they come from Bavaria.
From Bavaria?
Bavaria.
And you've got a little accent.
Just from what my sister teaches.
Just from what your sister taught you?
Yes, she says.
Maybe a little bit of a Germany kind of accent.
I guess.
But a little bit of-
she knowed lots of languages.
She knew lots of languages.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, let's go back to when you come out here in the big blue bus. Was your brother working at the time?
Well, not when we come, but he come out here and he work. We'd get jobs painting houses, fixing stuff, on the
And what
house.
did your sister do?
Oh, nothing except that she would help him sometimes.
And she'd look after you?
Oh, yes, always.
Did you eat well?
Oh, God, look at this. You can see
And
how
you
big I
lived
am.
well?
Always, always.
And where did you park the big blue bus?
Oh, no, most in Stanley Park. Sometimes we go where my brother was working, though, or sometimes somebody come and he'd go with them,
Would you live in Stanley Park?
Oh, lots of time we stay there. We moved, in the park where you go in under the little bridge?
Yes.
We stay right there lots of times, or we go around by where the girls on the rock, or the lighthouse, or the tea house,
And you'd stay there overnight and
Oh,
sleep there overnight?
Sometimes, I guess you don't supposed to, and if the policemen come, we just move to some other place.
Just moved to, and you lived there for years?
Oh, long time, till my sister goes away.
Till your sister goes away. Now, I want to introduce to the audience now Martin Baker from Minister of Human Resources. This is a most unusual situation because Luke, obviously, is a guy of considerable charm and wit and knowledge. What are you now really trying to do for Luke? I know you've looked after him well since he was found at the Seabus, but what are you trying to achieve?
We're trying to essentially establish his identity and to make contact with any relatives or friends out there who may know more about him and may help Luke to be a little easier with where he's living and what he's doing and his new life. We're not asking anybody to take responsibility. We're simply saying, let us know Luke's background and let us make contact with us so Luke can feel a little more comfortable.
For instance, you'd like to find this older couple
That's right.
with whom Luke had been staying. Were you
That's
still
right.
staying in the blue bus with them
No.
after your brother went away on your birthday?
No. When my sister goes away, we move into the small one,
You had a smaller one too.
the little one.
Yeah.
So you and your brother moved into the
little.
little one.
And then we was not in the park so much. We mostly go where he'd be working,
Wait, just the two of you then?
Yes, we go.
I see the two of you then living in the small one. And then your brother went away about last August.
Was before my birthday, yes.
Did he tell you where he was going?
No, not really. He just says he goes someplace to work.
According to the letter, he was going back to Toronto to look for work. And I should clarify one other thing. The van that they lived in before was a brown van. It was a Bluebird van. It was one of the great big Bluebird buses that was converted into a home.
That's a big bird.
And it was a brown. Luke describes it as being the color of a paper bag.
And there was a bathtub on the back of it.
That's
Yes,
right.
there was a
There
bathtub.
Once we get the
on the back.
bathtub on the back.
Exactly.
Did you have a happy time with your brother and your
God,
sister
it was
out
the
here?
nicest life. Always.
Let's go back to your early days, Luke.
To what?
To your early days.
Oh, yes.
Did you go to school? Where did you live in Toronto?
We lived by the metro station. Yeah.
Down near the Royal York Hotel?
Oh, no, by the metro station.
Right by the metro stations? In the big house?
No, in the house, yes, not in the, no, we didn't have the bus house then.
What kind of house was it?
Oh, there's a, you come to the front, there's a great big room on this side and a great big room on this side. In this room we had a big piano, the big one. My sister teaches the piano to the little kids,
Grand piano?
Oh, yes, you could, it was so nice,
Yeah, and your sister looked after you very well, didn't
Oh,
she?
God, it's the best.
Why didn't you go to school?
I don't know, the people sometimes, I don't know the reading stuff.
Yeah, don't get upset because
No.
we're having a nice, happy conversation.
Yeah, sure. No, they
Tell
didn't
me
know the
about
stuff.
tell me about the time your sister stepped in. Oh, you got a bicycle?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was little. I got a bicycle. The first day I fall right off and break my arm.
Aye. Then the next time.
And then, there's just somebody one time says my head was made of wood. Oh, Holzkopf. That's the German,
See that again in German?
Holzkopf.
Holzkopf,
The
wooden head.
And she punched him.
Pow.
Oh, she really punched him.
She really looked after you. But you didn't go to school.
No.
Do you have trouble seeing?
Oh, sometimes the print stuff hurts, I see this stuff. It goes away real fast. And I get almost sick to the stomach.
Now, you were showing me your writing a little while ago, and you write everything backwards.
Unless I could write the easy way down the side.
Yeah, that's most interesting. Nobody's ever told you that you've had something likely called dyslexia?
I don't know this.
Don't know.
I don't write except my name.
Maybe that's why you didn't go to school.
Because I'm learning to, I go to school now, you know, I'm learning the numbers.
You're going to school now?
Yes, I go to school now.
Now,
I
when
went
you
to school today.
when you were in Toronto, you used to travel. Tell me where you went
Oh, we
and
go
how
to
you
Montreal.
traveled.
We go to Montreal on the train, you know. You take the metro down to the station, you know, across from the big hotel. And then you get in, what you do, you pay this, I don't know, some extra money. And you sit in the big chairs and they serve you so good, you know, it's real nice.
That's in the train.
Yes, yes.
On the fast
yes.
train to Montreal.
Yes, yes, yes.
Lovely
exactly.
service
Oh,
and good
yes,
meals.
Yes.
Did you do that often?
Oh, lots of time. My brother built lots of people in Montreal.
So your brother's name was Bertold,
Bertold.
and he had lots of friends in Montreal. How about your sister Greta? She have friends there too?
No, I think there's, I don't know, my brother know them. And the people out here know all the people in Montreal too, you know.
So that's the couple. Why did you move? Why did you move to this couple? Because your brother went off to Toronto to get
Yes, he
work.
left. He left. Well, he doesn't get so much work. The last time we was in Victoria, he painted some houses. That was the last what he had. It was hard to I guess lots of people.
Is he older than you or younger
oh, yes,
than you?
he's older.
And he was always very kind to you.
Oh yes, he was always good.
And the people, the old couple, you called them the Graumanns or somebody. They were
Yes, yes.
They were kind
They
to you
was
too.
real old, but they was nice, real nice.
It's quite a. Are there no documents, Martin? Did
We have
Luke not
written-
have any documents on him?
Nothing. We have written to the registry in BC and in Ontario under all of the names that we've been given. Kuhlmann under Bert's name, Greta's name, Berthold, Margarita, and we've got nothing in return. We've written to the Royal Conservatory of Music or contacted them and the Ontario Music Teachers Association, and we're waiting to hear from them. We're also having the van traced by the policeman that picked him up. To see if there were any records of them having talked to anybody in Stanley Park who had a van of this description. And we're contacting the newspapers and yourself.
So, to put it quite dramatically, Luke appeared from nowhere.
Appeared from nowhere. And we have
Nobody
no-
has come
that's
forward
right.
to say, yes, we recognize her. We recognize Luke. We know this nice old couple
Yeah.
because all you want to do is thank them for looking after
That's
her.
right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Excuse me, I'm going to lead across. Now, you say you can't read,
No, I don't read the words. At my name, I could read
but
this.
you can read this.
Oh, sure, I'm this. Is all my tapes. All my tapes, what my sister made.
But you lost a lot of your tapes.
Oh, I had this much times again.
What
They
do you-
were all in the box when he was at the Seabus.
A box, all
and
my stuff.
Yeah, 6 times as many tapes as we have here, and they were stolen.
All the operas.
And his clothes.
My clothes.
We'd really like to get them back too, for
Yeah.
clues and more than that, because Luke would like them.
Yes.
Perhaps you can explain this to me.
Sure.
This is your code, which your sister marked for you, did she?
No, I made this thing, but my brother marked all the tapes, see, so I know what they be. These are the singing ones, and this is the piano one.
Oh, little mouth. Okay, explain the singing ones to me.
Okay, this is the Sills Tebaldi and Pavarotti and Sills and Sutherland, and this is the Mahler Strauss.
And what are these two at
And
the
all
bottom?
this is Judy Garland.
Right, now, these ones up here are the
Just
piano
all
ones.
piano ones. And on these 3 on the back, my sister plays all the stuff. My brother recorded it right on the piano. I was laying under the piano when he made the record.
Where are you? How long ago was that?
Oh, in Toronto, God, it was
Oh,
the longest time.
Long time. Okay,
Yes.
who's identified by the
Okay,
double dots?
that's Beethoven, and this is Brahms, and this is Chopin, this is Rachmaninoff, this is Tchaikovsky.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
But you lost a lot of your tapes.
Well, I have all these, but all was all the operas we had. My brother made it from the records we had, you know.
Who's your favorite opera singer?
Tebaldi.
Tebaldi.
Oh,
Is
God.
Tebaldi a man or a woman? I don't
It's a
know.
woman, Renata Tebaldi.
Please forgive my
Oh,
ignorance.
God, she's the wonderful one.
And you've got some of your recordings there?
Yes, this is the one what my sister plays.
Play me a little bit.
But maybe it's too loud.
No. What's that?
It's a Chopin waltz.
Chopin waltz.
Yes.
That's very nice indeed. Okay, you can put it off again.
Okay, that's fine.
Now tell me, where will Luke be living now, Martin? You find a home for him?
We're looking for a home for him. We have a couple of possibilities. Luke wants to be near Stanley Park. That's one of the places
Oh, I
he'd
like
like to
this.
be near.
I wish I worked there
And
picking
so-
up papers.
Yeah.
So-
you never know. If the depression goes away, you might be able to get a job.
He's offered to work in Stanley Park for nothing,
I
anytime
would
they
do
want
this
him.
to pick up the... You know when the strike was on?
Yeah.
And the papers was all so messy? My brother and I would go, we pick them up sometimes.
And that was when you're living in the big brown
No, the
blue
little
box.
one, the little one.
The little one. The little one. Are you unhappy?
Oh, I sometimes I'd be crying.
A little bit unhappy.
But no, the people is so good. God, my sister is not better than the people here.
And the important thing now is to find the couple that left you at the Seabus with the note and your clothes, and your brother Bert.
But I like to find my brother and sister.
Oh yes, the picture. We're going to show the
Like
picture.
Just put
Yeah,
picture, you know.
we're going to show the picture. Okay, Luke, thank you very much.
Good.
And thank you for telling me who Tabaldi was.
If
Oh,
anybody
God.
does have any information or would like to contact us,
Number?
Minister of Human Resources at 255-8232, or they can write to 522 Alexander Street.
Or they can call the Vancouver Richmond Association for the
Very good.
for the learning disabled,
Or mentally handicapped.
people.
mentally handicapped people. Telephone number
263-1931.
263-1931. Vancouver Richmond Association, a very old friend of mine. 263-1931.
And they should ask for Marion Foster.
Marion Foster.
Who was so nice. God, she'd be so nice.
Yeah. Best of luck, Luke.
Thank you.
There are Bert and Greta. Somebody must know them. I think that was taken in Stanley Park. 5 to 10 years here, in a big brown bluebird bus. Somebody might even have been taught music. This is Marion Foster, who's been very helpful. I interviewed Luke in their home of the Vancouver Richmond Association, 263-1931. If you have any clues as to the identity of Luke, we know his name, Lucas Kuhlmann, but somebody must have bought the bus from them, perhaps. That somebody must have had work done in Victoria and Vancouver by Bert. And all we need to do is get it round and perhaps can find Bert, who maybe Greta too, who knows. Very touching story, every word of it the honest gospel truth. Now, I'll be back after this with Solange Chaput-Rolland. Madame Solange Chaput-Rolland is a distinguished political writer and broadcaster in Quebec, and we won't go into any other of her backgrounds. I want to ask you a simple question.
Yes, sir.
Can this nation stay together? What is the state of affairs in Quebec? We know nothing about it.
State of affair in Quebec. Well, it's the same, I think, in every other province. There is a political vacuum, and in Quebec it is more so because the government, as you know, is a government dedicated to the secession of Quebec to the rest of Canada. Mr. Lévesque is in trouble somehow since the patriation because he's lost a great deal of credibility. In order to regain its credibility and keep his party within trend that he wanted, he has won his own referendum at 95%. About half of his militants took part in this referendum, so as far as a leader is concerned, he's okay. But as a man, I think he has lost a great deal of credibility, and there is a great deal of anger among the ranks of his party.
And you'll be telling me now that Trudeau and the provincial premiers were very unfair and shut him out brutally, thereby preventing unity in this country.
Well, I don't think it's as brutal as all that, but certainly, from what we see from the outside, the very fact that the accord was signed during the night without Mr. Lévesque, whatever fault of his he committed when he fell into Mr. Trudeau's beautiful, invitation to join him for a new referendum, Mr. Lévesque accepted, walked into that trap. But yet, if you really believe that a country is bigger than the pettiness of its politician, you don't sign an accord in the middle of the night with the very province who's at the beginning of this country and kick it out. I think it's unbelievable.
As a simple-minded observer, isolated out here on the West Coast.
Yes.
And we know nothing about the rest of the country. We feel slighted and alienated in many ways. Are we in much the same state as we were when Trudeau arrived in 1968 to save the nation?
I think we're worst.
Worse?
I don't think that it's very difficult to make that in a simple judgment. But Mr. Trudeau's basic plunge into the federal politics was to save Quebec from the separatists, so-called, as he called them. Well, then they taken power twice. After we won the referendum, Mr. Trudeau used the referendum as a plebiscite for himself, allowing him to patriate unilaterally without the help of the province, which is contrary to the very principle of federalism in Canada. And now, the last economy conference, if you looked at it, you can't tell me that this speaks for unity. It speaks for something which is rather frightening.
This man Trudeau, more and more people out here feel they cannot trust him.
Well,
is that comparable in, forget the patriation. Well, let's put it this way. Nobody lies here awake at night worrying about patriation.
no, nobody in Quebec either.
Nobody in Quebec
But
either.
people are mad because Quebec is not in it, which is normal. If you had been set out of the, if BC or Alberta have been left out of the accord, you would be roaringly mad, and I can quite well understand
We'd
that.
probably screaming some kind of secession. We probably, the
Yes.
political leaders would
Yes,
at least.
yes.
Maybe that's.
But you're asking me about Mr. Trudeau. Can we trust him? I don't think the question is trust. The question is, do we like this vision of Canada? Yes or no? I don't. I don't believe in the Canada of Mr. Trudeau. And therefore, that is the danger point, because we are in Quebec, you have two trends, secession and federation. In the rest of the country, you're now facing federation or confederation. But a real confederation of 10 sovereign states, because if you look at what is coming, and if Mr. Trudeau stays there and continues to want to have a central government, as strong as he does, something is bound to break.
I know, but you look at it from an economic point of view
Yes.
or a common sense point of view.
Well-
You know all these greedy, and I'd say this deliberately, grasping premiers who want everything from Ottawa and give nothing back.
Well, that's a very short-sighted statement. I don't
Well, I'm
think
just
it's
thinking,
quite true.
I'm thinking of the attitudes of the premiers, you know. If there's any suggestion, first of all, the economy must be controlled and must be cut and civil servants must be fired, except when they want money from Ottawa.
Well, it's not the question of wanting money from Ottawa. The question is that we live in a political regime which has a division of power. And within that division of power, certain payments are allotted to the provinces, and the needs of the province are greater than what the Constitution allows now. So you've got this bargaining table all the time. It gives the Premier a very bad outlook, but they are standing up for their own constituents,
But I
and I
can-
quite respect them
I
for
can
that.
tell you that the equalization funds, for instance, about which the rich provinces sometimes complain, are enshrined in the Constitution.
Well, this was a recommendation of the Pepin-Roberts, of which I was a part, to enshrine in the Constitution those payments. But even now, the Constitution is not back. The Charter specified that we will have what we call in French péréquation,
Equalization.
payment, within the Constitution, and already the Prime Minister has decided that the province would not receive what they were supposed to receive. So it's natural that they sort of gang up on him and try to get the best for their province.
But you say the resentment in Quebec against Trudeau is more than just a separatist resentment.
Now, the resentment against Trudeau is very difficult to assess, Jack, because Trudeau is the favorite son, to use an expression that is quite popular in the United States. So you can respect and love the man, and you don't agree with his politics. It's the same thing with Mr. Lévesque. I'm not a separatist, I'm not a Péquiste, but I do respect Mr. Lévesque. So we're torn apart between those two things. And a lot of people believe that Mr. Lévesque did not bargain well in the name of Quebec. I think he did. I think he did his best. But then again, you're caught between two great men of Quebec fighting each other, and one of them has got to go before the whole country blows up. That's my own honest.
Which one?
I think Mr. Trudeau. For
He
the
must go
present
first.
time, I think, look, he's been there for what now, 14 years? Well, I think he has done his best. I think history will remind him for the greater part of him rather than for the smaller part of him. But I think Mr. Trudeau has done his job, and somebody else should be in charge of the Liberal Party. I'm sorry, but that's
Maybe
what I
what we
believe.
need is somebody in charge of a conservative government.
Well, yes, I suppose, yes.
Give me a name.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
So, Solange Chaput-Rolland and Webster after the break. Madame, how
Monsieur.
long have you known Pierre Elliott Trudeau? Answer the question.
Yes, I was 20 and I'm 60, so figure it out.
40 years.
Yes, sir. But I was never a personal friend. In Quebec, when you were engaged in social reform, we all knew each other. I knew Pelletier, Marchand, Trudeau. These were all the gang that
The
we
three
were.
wise men.
Well,
We called them that.
They were called that a few years ago.
You never did call them
No.
that, did you?
No.
Why not? Were they too extremist for you, too far to the left?
No, it's
I'm talk-
I hate those those qualifications. I thought they were three extremely intelligent men. Don't forget, Jack, at the time the three of them plunged into the federal scene, it was very exciting because it was really three men, bold and free, and who wouldn't be afraid to speak up to English Canada.
and also fighting the establishment in the province of Quebec.
Yes, exactly. Fighting establishment, fighting everybody. In fact, that stopped Quebec evolution from going a little faster. And they did a good job. Gérard Pelletier, who is now ambassador, I think has remained more true to his internal line than the other two.
It would seem to me, and I've only known Pierre for 14 years on camera and never off camera, that he is now really an orthodox economist, financier, and he's lost all his drive for a little bit of revolution, hasn't he?
Well, you know, Mr. Trudeau was more of a talker than a doer, in the sense that he wrote some beautiful articles, but when the action really began to be something, he was off on a trip. Some of us in Quebec thought it was a bit much, but yet, you know, he's still a very great man.
Oh yeah, but we had an English phrase for that, a person who goes from thing to thing. We say they have the attention span of a hummingbird.
Well, I would say a hummingbird for Mr. Trudeau is a bit light. I think he has something more than that.
You know, so seldom can one talk to somebody who's known Pierre for 40 years. Was he a spoiled boy?
No, he was, I think, raised very, very Spartan.
Spartan?
By a mother who was an extraordinary woman, who reminded me very much of Madame Thérèse Casgrain. They were two friends, not for a thing. He was spoiled in the sense that when Mr. Trudeau wanted Young to take trips around the world, he did, but he did not travel first class. He left with a bag on his, on his back.
Knapsack.
Yes, exactly, and off he went. So in that sense, he was spoiled, but he was never spoiled with money. And that we all knew when he was young. He was not also very generous with money, and we also knew that when
Well,
we
we
were
know
young.
that from other sources, but I'm not going to refer to
That's
the
all
other
right.
sources.
Okay.
I will not plug the book.
That's all right. No.
Now, as a politician today, he seems to be extremely inflexible nowadays.
Well, he was always inflexible. What I find is he seems so lonely. When I look at him on television, he was like this when he was one. He's always surrounded by an aura of solitude. He's a lonely man, I think. The trouble is that he towers over most people. He understands things that we don't say before we say it. So it's a bit
Political
difficult.
question.
Sir? Were
Were you surprised when Serge Joyal and Monique Bejan signed this open letter critical of the Prime Minister's economic policies?
I was surprised that they took them so long to speak up because, during the patriation question, Quebecers wanted their MPs in Quebec to speak a bit louder to protect Quebec interests. It's not the same thing to protect Quebec at the federal point of view and to protect Quebec from a Quebec point of view. But you know, Jack, since the last 10 years, oppositions in the House of Commons or in the National Assembly are more within the party themselves than between the parties. So I'm not surprised at all. What I'm surprised that you showed me a little piece of paper, a clip of paper this morning that says Prime Minister says that if they write another letter, it will be of resignation. My goodness sake, is this a convent or a monastery or a political party? The NDP had their own dissident. Mr. Ryan has only dissident. Seems that Mr. Clark has a lot of dissidents too. So why should Mr. Trudeau play God all of a sudden?
All right, let me be a stuffy wasp for a moment.
Can you be that?
Yes, I am a stuffy wasp.
Well, I wouldn't dare to say, but it's all right with me.
Under our operation of cabinet collective responsibility, a cabinet minister who breaks that in public must resign.
Look, they didn't break cabinet solidarity. They didn't say we are dead set against the budget of Mr. McEachen. They didn't have that courage. What they said is, for heaven's sakes, get on with the job and help Quebec. I don't find this so terrible. As an MP, when I was in the National Assembly, I wrote some letters like this, and I got a bit of help from Mr. Ryan, but nothing else.
Okay, question.
Sir.
Can Ryan win an election in Quebec?
I don't think so, and I'm sorry to say so, because I have remained one of the very few liberal who was defeated and who has retained the same admiration and the same loyalty to him, but I know that I don't think he can win another election, depending on the timing of that election, of course.
Might Bourassa come back?
He will come back, I'm sure. I think the party will accept him, but I don't think the population will accept him.
Lévesque, will he lead the Parti Québécois in the next election?
Yes, sir, he will, and I am...
In the next federal election, will the Liberals maintain their solid stranglehold in Quebec? Federally?
I don't know. That is very difficult to say. I don't know. It depends on what will happen after patriation is back in Canada. If Quebec is left out, something will happen.
We're told, and I don't necessarily believe it, that Joe Clark is making gains in
Yes.
Quebec.
He is
Could that be
himself.
true?
Yes, himself, not the party. It's like the same story of Mr. Stanfield. Mr. Stanfield was very well respected in Quebec, almost admired. Joe Clark is well respected in Quebec, but the party is somewhere. Well, we don't know where it is.
Nowhere.
That's right. They made the same error all the time. They send one man in Quebec, they say, you win Quebec for me, and the rest of the party will be across Canada. Well, Quebecers are fed up with that kind of...
That's no good.
That's no good. You've got to really show interest, not only through one man, because he was intelligent to learn French. There's something more to understanding Quebec than to speak French.
Is there any possibility that to sabotage Trudeau, Lévesque in the next federal election might encourage anyone to run against the Libs? Put the weight of the party behind, say, the Conservatives.
Well, I think that the party of Mr. Lévesque has always taken part on the silent side within the federal election. As far as can they win, can they not win, Jack, I really don't know. You know, I'm out of it now, and it's very difficult.
You'll never be out of it.
I am out of it and never go back, sir.
I'm surprised you're not a senator.
Oh, my goodness, I thought you liked me.
Would you take the job?
Never.
Never, ever.
Why should I go and sleep there? I'd rather sleep at home. Voila.
Okay, just one moment. Tonight, you're here as a guest of the Vancouver Sun.
Yes, and I'm very pleased to be
God
here.
bless the Vancouver Sun. God
Well,
bless the
I'm very proud. You should thank them, and I should thank them because I'm here with you.
And you're speaking at the Vancouver Institute when? Tomorrow
night at UBC. On from Quebec referendum to Canadian patriation.
But just one last question.
Yes, sir.
Quebec or no Quebec, forget the provincial issues. I don't like that Charter of Rights.
I don't either, for heaven's sakes. I don't either. I don't think that you can enshrine a charter of right when it's imposed on the people. What is liberty? It's something you choose. It's not something you impose. As long as it's something you impose, it's no charter of right.
And I would rather trust a politician of whatever stripe than a judge to interpret my freedoms and constitution.
Well, I'm
would
going
you?
to let you get out of that phrase because I wouldn't get... No, I don't think No, I have a great deal of respect for the
so do
judiciary
I. No,
system.
not respect.
It is dangerous that many of the laws that should be enacted and obeyed and passed by Parliament will now be put in the Court of Justice, but sometimes I wonder, that's not why I worry about the Charter of Rights. I simply worry because it doesn't answer the true needs of the people. It doesn't protect the right of French Canadian outside Quebec. Mr. Trudeau has sold the Franco-Ontarian down the drain.
Davis has too.
And, well, yes. And I think that is, to me, something that I resent very much.
Quite
If I
intolerable.
were a Franco-Ontarian, I'd feel that my country doesn't deserve all I have done for that country.
You must be going to run in the next election. You're
I
full
hope.
of fire.
I will not. I have
You're
a
full of
contract
fire.
with CBC. I'm writing a soap opera.
You work for the state system.
Yes, sir.
You're a civil servant.
I'm not. I'm a freelance.
What's the soap opera about? The Journal?
Yeah, it's going to be called Mr. Minister.
You're joking.
No, I'm not joking. It's accepted for 35 episodes. It's the biggest news in Quebec that Solange Chaput-Rolland is now writing for television. 35 episodes, half an hour each week, complete.
It'll be a thinly disguised expose of Parliament.
Well, I'm not that. I'm not that way. I have no axe to grind, but it will be based on an experience to show the public what it is to be in politics inside. And I don't think people have a clue.
I trust this is going to be in English.
Well, I talk to somebody in CBC.
No. That's
No, you
public
don't?
money. No one else.
I hope so. But I doubt it.
Charming. I thank you very much.
I thank you.
Solange Chaput-Rolland. Chaput-Rolland.
Your French
What does it
is-
mean?
It is my name. What does it mean, Jack Webster?
Webster is a weaver.
Well,
What is a
Chaput.
Chaput-Rolland? Chaput, no.
No, it's not a chapeau, it's Chaput.
What is a Chaput-Rolland?
I don't know, it's my name,
Why
for
don't you
heaven's
know?
sakes.
How many thousands of years has your family been in this country?
They arrived in 1648, and they were a blacksmith. Maybe Chaput is a blacksmith, I don't know.
Kindly find out the next time
I
I
will,
ask
I
you the
promise.
question. My thanks.
Thank you.
A bientôt.
A bientôt.
After the break. You heard what Solange Chaput-Rolland said about Trudeau. What will Lorne Nystrom of the NDP, one of the brighter boys in that particular claque, what will he tell me about Trudeau? Is it time that somebody said to Trudeau, in the name of God, go?
I think it is. I thought this morning we had a tremendous objective view of Trudeau from Madame Chaput-Rolland. And most people don't realize that she was a Liberal MLA in Quebec for a while. And when you get that point of view from her, it's really fascinating. Trudeau's been around for a long time. Since 1968, we've gone through 4 or 5 American presidents. And I think it's about time we had a change of leadership in the Liberal Party.
What I didn't get in with Chaput-Rolland this morning was the fact that I did say stranglehold. As long as the Liberals can hold a stranglehold in the federal seats in Quebec, it's almost impossible to elect any other majority government.
It is, and I think that's the real challenge for our party and for the Conservative Party, is to somehow get into Quebec. One of the tragedies of politics today in Canada is we don't have any national parties. Our party doesn't exist really east of Ontario. The Conservatives don't exist in the province of Quebec, and the Liberals don't exist in Western Canada. And somehow we have to pull this country together through reforms of federalism or reforms in our parliamentary system or something.
See, I didn't dare tackle Solange on the point that I think we must, in some sense, have a fairly strong central government.
So do I. I've always thought we have to have a balance between the provinces on one side and the central government on the other. That's a real federation. And what Trudeau did wrong in the Constitution was he tried to move unilaterally and impose something on the provinces. I think, Jack, for example, one way of uniting this country is to try to bring some of the provinces into the center in terms of constitutional reform. One example, we're the only federal state in the world where the other house, the Senate, is appointed by the central government. In other federations, it's the state governments or the provinces that elect their senators at the center.
A matter of fact, I will now accept that, although I thought at first that if you appointed provincial people to the Senate, you probably would finish up with a lot of hacks, but there'd be provincial hacks instead of federal hacks.
Well, the other thing too, Jack, is you have a balance then between the tyranny of the majority. See, in a parliamentary system, you have Ontario and Quebec that have 2/3 of the MPs because that's where the population is. And I think on the other hand, you have to have a balance between the regions, the provinces, so that there's a balance between regionalism in the country and the force of population.
Weren't you in the black books of the NDP when you, well, not the black books, but didn't you split with the party on the Constitution?
Yes, I did, and it's a very difficult thing to do in a parliamentary system. I was the constitutional critic, and I went through the whole committee stage, and I tried my best to change the resolution of Mr. Trudeau. But at the end of the committee stage, we still had 8 provinces that opposed. It was still unilateral. We still had an amending formula that gave a veto to Ontario and a veto to Quebec, but not to the other provinces. And in conscience, I couldn't support it. So I resigned, and I spoke out in favor of a compromise, another conference. And
You resigned as a constitutional spokesman for the party.
That's right.
You, of course, took the Blakeney position, being from Saskatchewan.
I took a very similar position to Mr. Blakeney, yes.
Did they ever, it shows you how quickly one forgets, the Ontario-Quebec veto was removed in effect.
It was removed. Now we have an amending formula where you need 7 of the provinces representing half the people of this country, which recognizes the constitutional equality of the provinces. Same as the United States. Every state is constitutionally equal in the amending formula. And the United States Senate, for example, Rhode Island has 2 senators and California has 2 senators. So you have that balance on one hand between the regions of the United States, or Australia, or Switzerland, or any other federation, and population on the other side.
It would seem to me that you're having a few, not problems, but you've had quite a shake-up in the NDP lately, haven't you?
Yes, we have. We're halfway through the term.
Why did Bob Rae leave and go for the Ontario leadership? He was a guy highly admired on the Hill. He was your finance critic, right? Mm-hmm. And whammo, he leaves and goes to that thankless job of trying to rebuild the NDP in Ontario.
I think he left because he had most of the Ontario Party calling for him to go. He got about 2/3 of the votes in the first ballot in the leadership convention, which was testimony to his support in the Ontario Party. We've had many precedents of people who've been in federal politics who've gone back.
He's a good guy, Ray, isn't he?
I think he is. I think he's a very competent person who has a chance of winning government in Ontario.
Let's talk about Saskatchewan for a moment. We're in a pretty severe recession at the moment, it seemed to be.
Yeah.
How is it in Saskatchewan?
We're very fortunate in Saskatchewan. Our growth rate last year was the highest in the country. It was about 8%. Our unemployment rate's only about 4%.
What?
About 4%, 4.5%.
Winnipeg's now bigger than Vancouver. Oh, no, that's not. That's Manitoba.
That's
Carry on.
Manitoba, yeah. No, we're very lucky because we have so much potash in the province. We have a lot of natural resources. The prices are good. We've had good crops.
And of course, you've got a very healthy uranium crop, too.
Yes, there's a big uranium crop in the province. And
Are you for or against that?
Well, I think that we have to move away from uranium in the future as quickly as we can. I think we should use uranium only as a stopgap till we get into other forms of renewable energy resources. Such
Is there
as
no public outcry about the mining of uranium in Saskatchewan?
Very little. There is some, but not very much, because people in Saskatchewan realize that we have this resource, that you have countries around the world, such as the Europeans, the Americans, that are using it, and that has to be supplied from somewhere. And until we get into alternatives, that we're probably going to be stuck with uranium. But I think we should put more and more money into...
It is an embarrassment to the NDP to have this divided attitude, isn't it?
I think everybody's divided on it. I look at France, for example. The socialist government in France is going ahead with a nuclear program now.
And I hear the Liberals saying that they will not stop mining in Elliott Lake because of the jobs, regardless of the fears of people and what may have happened to miners in the past.
Well, that's one of the problems, and we have high unemployment in the country. The Ontario NDP at the last convention, for example, said that we would not immediately close down the uranium industry in the province. But the important thing, Jack, though, is to put money into research and development of clean, safe, alternative energy resources. And that's something we haven't done much of in this country.
What do you think of the economic future right now?
I think it's very dismal. I've just started out as trade critic for the party. I've had a chance to see some of the economies around the world. Our standard of living since Trudeau came to power has dropped from second place to about 10th or 11th or 12th in the world. We have a very high unemployment rate, particularly in the parts of the country that are heavy in manufacturing. We're moving very rapidly into computers and high technology in the world, but once again Canada is falling behind. And we're going to have to do some really massive changes in this country if we want to keep out.
My questions and your calls to Lorne Nystrom, NDP. First time you've been on the air with me, isn't it?
That's right, Jack.
From Yorkton-Melville, Saskatchewan. After the break. One gets very discouraged when one watches the House of Commons on occasion or compares the freedom of information with that available in the United States. Of the Liberals, the Tories were talking about opening up the Commons to give more freedom to MPs. How bad is it now under the Liberals?
I think it's very bad, Jack. A lot of things are kept secret. The individual MP in a majority parliament doesn't have any power as a legislator. All we can do is to get up and make a speech and hope we can arouse public opinion to effect a change. I spent some time in Washington last fall, and I came back very envious that the congressman does have legislative power.
What's the difference between the power of a congressman and the power of an MP?
Well, first, the major difference is in the United States, the committees have real power. They can initiate legislation, initiate money bills. They can change the president's budget without defeating the government. For example, when Reagan presents a budget to Congress, it goes to about 100 different committees and subcommittees in the United States. And regardless of how popular the budget is, chopped up in many, many dozens of places. And we don't have that power in our system. If you vote against the government, you have an election. And Via Rail was a good example. I don't know more than 10 Liberals that support the cutbacks in passenger rail service. But who wants an election on Via Rail?
In other words, what Churchill said may have been right, that it was the best of all the bad systems, democracy. But it's still a fact that with a majority government, the Prime Minister is in effect a dictator.
Yeah, I think once you have a majority, you in essence end the democratic parliamentary system. We're going to have an appointment to the Supreme Court in the next few days. And the Supreme Court has to adjudicate between the provinces and the federal government often in major disputes. But there's no democracy in terms of appointing that person. The Prime Minister will appoint whomever the Prime Minister wants. And in the United States, for example, all the President can do is nominate someone. It's the Congress that has to either ratify or reject the nomination. But we don't even have that process in Canada.
Well, now I put this fear to Trudeau myself. I said, is it not a fact that down the road, some way, we could have a packed Supreme Court?
Sure, sure. And in fact, now most of the appointments to the Supreme Court are Trudeau appointments, and a lot of the appointments are obviously very good people.
Yeah, but you're not knocking the people, but one knows one's bent, the bent of the man before you appoint him.
That's right, and he can appoint whomever he wants. In terms of ambassadors, whomever the Prime Minister wants, the Prime Minister can appoint. Major Crown corporations, Bryce Mackesy was appointed as the head of Air Canada.
Oh, that was one of the real shockers, wasn't it?
And there is no input by MPs. What I'm suggesting is that we reform the parliamentary system where major appointments have to go to a parliamentary committee. But don't have our hearings.
But don't the Americans say that becomes, or some Americans say that becomes a witch hunt? A perfectly good man will come up for examination and he can be destroyed by the slightest flaw in his background.
Yes, that's one of the problems, but I mean, the press can destroy someone anyway without the benefit of a parliamentary hearing. Mm-hmm. And I think if you have a parliamentary hearing and there's nothing really serious in the guy's background, then he has a chance to defend him or herself.
Has anyone ever given any serious thought to reform of our parliamentary system in these ways?
Not that serious. The government House Leader Pinar wants to do some reforming. Walter Baker, the Tory House Leader, had talked a bit about parliament reform. We're about to strike a small committee in our party to take a look at reforming Parliament.
I mean, even if you only had the power to, restricted the Prime Minister to nominating people to certain key appointments.
That's right.
And then examining that person's attitude in public.
That's right. And having Parliament itself ratify the appointment. For example, when Mackesy was named head Air Canada, he should have been nominated by the PM. There should have been public hearings by the Transport Committee, and then Parliament either says yes or no. Because if you don't do that, you find now we have 3 Western provinces, Jack, who are not part of the government. We're part of the Parliament, but we're not part of the government. And when Joe Clark was in power, we had Quebec that were left out of the government of this country.
But it would be wrong to say that we're not represented. We're represented by people without power. That's what it means.
Yes, we're basically political eunuchs, unless we can change public opinion and get people outraged enough, or they're putting enough pressure on the Liberal Party now to change something. But if we can't do that, we're just crying in the wind.
A little bit about yourself. How old are you?
35 years old.
A trade, occupation, or profession prior to becoming a politician?
I was a university student. I was elected when I was barely 22 years old back in 1968.
Oh, you were the youngest guy ever elected to the House of Commons.
That's right, in the history of the country. It was during the whole youth craze.
So
Bobby
you've been
Kennedy
in since '68?
Yes, I'm one of the old-timers. Nearly 14 years.
I read an ad for the National Coalition for Citizens' Rights the other day, and right-wing though they are, they make a hell of a case that you people all supinely voted in your own self-interest for your incredible pensions, better than any private pension that can be obtained in the land. Do you not feel shamefaced about voting for that?
I have some real regrets about the pension plan, and we've moved amendments. The biggest thing that embarrasses me, you can collect a pension after 6 years, Jack.
Oh, you get a substantial one already.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
How much?
If I quit now, I'd have a pension of $21,000 a year. That's after 14 years in the House of Commons.
And when you're 60, it becomes indexed.
It becomes indexed. And we moved amendments that we do not get a pension until you're 60 years old. Because now you can conceivably have someone elected at the age of 18 in this country, retire at the age of 24, and then get a pension for life. Now, of course, there are 6 years, the pension is not $20,000. It's probably more like $10,000 or $12,000. Yeah. But even so, that's a lot of money.
It's dreadful, isn't it? When Trudeau has the gall to suggest restraints, 50,000 freeze, remember? Mm-hmm. And full CPI below 15.6, I think it was. And yet you all sit back and everybody votes. Did you vote against it?
I didn't vote against the pay increase this time. I did 2 times before and accepted the pay increase. And I thought that if we were going to accept it, that you should be voting for it as well. But in terms of the pension legislation, as I said, we support amendments where we don't qualify till you're 60 years old.
Lorne, you're in town for a purpose.
I'm in town to speak tomorrow to a couple of NDP riding associations.
Oh, Bob Williams, now like MacDonald.
No, I'm not going to that one. I'm going into the Fraser Valley area.
Oh, yeah. Which one's you going to? Just a matter of
I think it's Fraser Valley East and the provincial riding, which name I forget right now.
Oh, I must tell you, Bob Williams phoned me this morning. And Bob, of course, was a very powerful minister in the NDP and a remarkably good forest minister, a bit abrasive and arrogant. Won't talk to me.
I don't.
He's really after Barrett's job, you see. He denies that. But I say he wants to get Alec MacDonald out, and then if there's a radical move in BC, Bob might go for the leadership.
I don't
He's
know
not a
enough-
radical, he's a left of centre.
I don't know enough about BC politics. I know Bob Williams, and I liked him as a person.
How about Blakeney? Is he secure forever? Is he going to stay on?
I think he'll stay on. I think he's in a very solid position, and he'll be having elections sometime in the next year or so in Saskatchewan.
Refreshing this morning indeed with Lorne Nystrom, NDP, Yorkton-Melville, Saskatchewan. After this, we're going to go back to Luke, L-U-K-E, Luke, the man who came from nowhere. We're going to present you a short piece of it, and I'm going to ask you, there must be somebody out there who knows the people in the Bluebird bus, the big brown Bluebird bus. Somebody for whom his brother worked. There was another smaller camper that used to park outside work jobs or in house driveways in Victoria. And if the old couple should be watching by any chance who looked after Luke so kindly, they've nothing to worry about. I think they looked after him without any help or money from anybody. And all that people want to do is just give Luke a link with his past and, if possible, find his brother Bert. That's Bert's little name. His big name, as Luke said so charmingly, is Berthold Kuhlmann. Sister, little name Greta, big name Margareta. So if you can help identify Luke's background and friends, we'll take them on the air or off the air. You don't have to tell everything you know on the air, but I wanted to make time for some calls on the subject, because I'm sure that the identification of Luke's friend ain't all that far away. After the break. I don't expect a flood of calls about Luke, so I think it was so worthwhile this morning. Is it ready? Or give me thumbs up when it's ready. That I'm going to run a little bit of Luke's tape again, just to, in case somebody missed the early part of the broadcast. And the clues as to Luke's whereabouts and his identity, we know where he is now. He's living in this delightful foster home of the Vancouver Richmond Association for the Mentally Handicapped in Vancouver. But there are a number of clues. You'll remember that Luke said to me they were here 5 or 10 Christmases. Now, if you've got a big Bluebird bus and 3 people, and the bus had a bathtub in the back, and the sister and the 2 brothers, somebody must have run into them, got to know them, maybe bought the Bluebird bus from them. The police are, I don't know if the ICBC computer can actually pick up on a single bus and find out who bought it, who sold it, or where it is, but they might be able to. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of Luke again, starting from the very beginning, as so. Right now, just keep watching. Luke, when you were left sitting there at the Seabus with the note that you had, what was going to happen to you? Did you know that you'd been left alone with nowhere to go?
Oh yeah, they say somebody comes.
They said somebody would come.
Yes.
What can you tell me about yourself, Luke? When's your birthday?
August the 4th.
August the 4th. What year?
I don't know.
Any idea how old you are?
No, the doctor at Woodland says I was 81.
Ah, he was pulling your leg. You're more like maybe 45 or 50.
I don't know this.
Or 51. Now, look, before you were left at the Seabus, with whom had you been staying?
The Grammans.
The who?
The Grammans.
The Grammans.
Yes.
Was that the name of the couple?
Was the old cold man, old woman.
Old man and old woman.
Yes. I think they knowed my brother from Montreal.
They knowed your brother from Montreal. Your brother went away about last August.
Was before my birthday, yes.
Did he tell you where he was going?
No, not really. He just says he goes someplace to work.
According to the letter, he was going back to Toronto to look for work. And I should clarify one other thing. The van that they lived in before was a brown van. It was a Bluebird van. It was one of the great big Bluebird buses that was converted into a home.
That's a big bird.
And it was a brown. Luke describes it as being the color of a paper bag.
And there was a bathtub on the back of it.
That's
Yes,
right.
there was a
There
Let's
bathtub
forget
in
the
back.
bathtub on the back.
Exactly.
Did you have a happy time with your brother and your
God,
sister
it was
out
the
here?
nicest life. Always, always.
Perhaps you can explain this to me.
Sure.
This is your code, which your sister marked for you, did she?
No, I made this thing, but my brother marked all the tapes, see, so I know what they be. These are the singing ones, and this is the piano one.
Oh, little mouth. Okay, explain the singing ones to me.
Okay, this is the Sills Tebaldi and Pavarotti and Sills and Sutherland, and this is the Mahler-Strauss.
And what are these two at
And
the
all
bottom?
this is Judy Garland.
Right, now, these ones up here are the
Just
piano
all
ones.
piano ones. And on these three on the back, my sister plays all the stuff. My brother recorded it right on the piano. I was laying under the piano when he made the record.
Where are you? How long ago was that?
Oh, in Toronto, God, it was
Oh,
the longest time.
Long time. Okay.
Yes.
Who's identified by the
Okay,
double dots?
that's Beethoven, and this is Brahms, and this is Chopin, this is Rachmaninoff, this is Tchaikovsky.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
But you lost a lot of your tapes.
Well, I have all these, but all the another was all the operas we had. My brother made them from the records we had, you know.
Who's your favorite opera singer?
Tebaldi.
Tebaldi.
Oh,
Is
God.
Tebaldi a man or a woman? I don't
Oh, it's a
know.
woman, Renata Tebaldi.
Please forgive my
Oh,
ignorance.
God, she's the wonderful one.
And you've got some of your recordings there?
Yes, this is the one what my sister plays.
Play me a little bit.
Maybe it's too loud.
No. What's that?
It's a Chopin waltz.
Chopin waltz.
Yes.
That's very nice indeed. Okay, you can put it off again.
Okay, that's fine.
Now tell me, where will Luke be living now, Martin? You find a home for him?
We're looking for a home for him. We have a couple of possibilities. Luke wants to be near Stanley Park. That's one of the places
Oh, I
he'd like
like
to
this.
be near.
I wish I worked there
And
picking
so
up papers.
Yeah.
So-
you never know. If the depression goes away, you might be able to get a job.
he's offered to work in Stanley Park for nothing,
I
anytime
would
they
do
want
this
him.
to pick up the... You know when the strike was on?
Yeah.
And the papers was all so messy? My brother and I would go, we'd pick them up sometimes.
And that was when you're living in the big brown
No, the
blue
little
bags.
one, the little one.
The little one. The little one. Are you unhappy?
Oh, I sometimes I'd be crying.
A little bit unhappy.
But no, the people is so good. God, my sister is not better than the people here.
And the important thing now is to find the couple that left you at the Seabus with the note and your clothes,
Yeah.
and your brother Bert.
But I like to find my brother and sister.
Oh yes, the picture.
Find it.
We're going to show the
Like to
picture.
just put
Yeah.
picture, you know.
We're going to show the picture. Okie dokie, that was in a recut version, just a shorter one. Now have a good look at that picture. Bertold and Margareta Kuhlmann. I think that could even be down at Third Beach in Stanley Park. Second Beach or Third Beach in Stanley Park. I didn't expect a flood of calls, but I thought I might get one or two if, as Luke said, the family has been around for, 5 to 10 or a little more in the way of Christmases. And I still get the feeling that he could be from Quebec somewhere or other, or rather that he could be identified, the French could be identified in Montreal too, although Solange Chaput-Rolland disagreed with me. I thought there was a little bit of a Montreal-type French accent hidden in there in Luke's voice, but she didn't think so. Now, here are the numbers to call if you can't call me. And the first one will be this one. That's Marion Foster at the Vancouver Association for the Mentally Handicapped, 263-1931. And the other one is Human Resources. I think we've got Human Resources. That's Luke, of course. 255-8232. Don't worry about Luke. Luke is in good hands and being looked after and is learning to write and count, difficult though it is. But, you know, it's really quite sad when you think back that his elder brother and sister were probably so discouraged when he was, I don't know how much younger he is or was than them, that when they sent him to school, he was regarded as a Holzkopf, a wooden head, because obviously he couldn't, because of his eye problem or his perception problem, pick up reading and writing and simple arithmetic in those days. So they obviously sheltered him very well. Big house with a grand piano, not far from the metro station in Toronto. She gave piano lessons. What else? The brother Bertold works on houses, he painted houses, probably did some odd jobs around the place. And they lived all these years in this big bus. And they never ever, as far as I can recall, came to attention because of living in the big bus. It would seem many, many times in Stanley Park. Okay, we'll drop that now. You've got the numbers. I trust you have the interest. I'm sure you will do. And I'll be back with a free-for-all and some items I want to give you after this break. In all my years as a reporter, far too many. Oh no, wrong thing. The smoke is beginning to clear on the bureaucratic mess at the Maples. But no one has yet explained why Dr. John Duffy quit so suddenly as Chairman and Executive Director of the Forensic Psychiatric Services Commission of British Columbia. His resignation came somewhat abruptly after he had made public statements on my program that he would clean up the mess at the Maples. And in case you've forgotten, there had been lengthy internecine warfare, which I told you about in my series of programs, Kids in Trouble, between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Human Resources, and the Psychiatric Commission, with the result that a 26-bed security containment unit for mentally ill youngsters was lying, and still is, I suspect, lying empty. You remember the disquiet there was about the conflicts between non-medical people and medical people, with the result that the psychiatrists did withdraw at least a major part of their services over this jurisdictional dispute. It has now been officially denied to me that neither Deputy Minister Brzezowski of the Ministry of Health or Assistant Deputy Minister Rempel have been appointed to do anything with the running of the Maples. So apparently the non-medical dispute is not there now. What has happened is that Dr. John Duffy resigned. Now, just for the record, a number of people have phoned me. The hierarchy at the Maples now, for the moment, temporarily, at least in part of it, is as follows. Executive Director, Dr. Derek Eves. Clinical Director, Dr. Brian Harris. Executive Director of the Commission taking Duffy's commission job is Dr. F.G. Tucker. That's the score. There have been no civil servants appointed in the top level running of the Maples. What I cannot tell you yet is if Dr. John Duffy's good public promise that a clean-up at the Maples would be effective and in full operation within 4 months. May I be so bold as to say I have my doubts. Not that I'm knocking Dr. Tucker and anybody, but it was a very sudden change of horses in midstream. And I can assure you that I will be watching this situation very closely because of the situation confirmed to me by Dr. Duffy that our treatment of emotionally disturbed and mentally ill youngsters has been one of which we can be shameful because of the neglect. So that's that. A funny little thing happened yesterday on the way to the studio, which I must tell you about. I got a letter from Shuswap. Matter of fact, it was hand-delivered, which is why I'm doing it. I don't normally do this kind of thing. And the letter's on its way. Is it on its way? It's in the mail? Canada Post? Old Post Office? Cup W? The letter's coming. Special delivery from Televation. Almost, there we are. Dear Jack, for years we've been planning a community centre in Shuswap and applied for a federal grant of $2 million. Our bid has been turned down. We did not ask for a handout and a silver platter. We tried to prove that we could help ourselves first before approaching the government. Of the $16 million in cultural grants, the Vancouver Art Gallery got $4.5 million. And that was the only application from BC to get any money. This is unfair. Next one. Even the Caravan Stage Company of Armstrong was turned down, and they were only asking for $12,000. After all this work, I feel dreadful. Jack, what do you suggest? Carol Hutchison, Shuswap Community Centre Society, and she made me promise I'd show the little button on there this morning, but it's too wee to show. I'm an honorary citizen of Shuswap. And at the same time, Mayor Margaret Lund of Salmon Arm. I feel like Fred Latrimo doing this, and I sure as hell don't look like Fred Latrimo. There's a slave auction, and Salmon Arm Mayor Margaret Lund is the first to come forward with a donation towards the annual slave auction, set for tomorrow at the Shuswap Inn. Mayor Lund has donated an original oil painting. Several guests will be in attendance. Oh, they don't matter. There'll be a roasting of personalities. I thought the mayor was going to be sold as a slave. But all she's doing is giving an original oil painting to go on the auction block to raise $4,500, hopefully, for the Shuswap Community Centre. Margaret, I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't known you weren't going to sell yourself as a slave. It's just your oil painting that's going as a slave. Anyway, I hope you raise the money. How do we do it? Calls after the break. Which camera? I can't get old Luke, he's younger than me by 10 years, maybe more, out of my mind this morning. Now, if anybody wants to call after the program, call the numbers I've given you already, or call the switchboard and ask for the Webster show. Now, we have a fair number of phones, which you can get through on if you want to tell us something off the air, right? Yes, so hold on, please. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, well, I saw Luke this morning, too, and we run a home for marginally retarded men for 3.5 years here, my husband and I.
Where is this?
This is in Port Coquitlam.
Uh-huh.
We were working on a voluntary basis except for a $100 a month honorarium for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Then we were put on salary last July. Now, 2 of the men have moved out, and the salary has been stopped.
Well, that seems logical, doesn't it?
Yes, except that they didn't try to move anybody else in.
Well, ma'am, that's a problem you have with the administration. Who do you deal with? Human Resources?
No.
Who do you deal with?
Human Resources are really with us.
Well, ma'am, you'll just have to fight that one yourself, my dear. Okay, bye. All right, hold on. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Jack.
Powell River.
Yes, that's the one from Powell River. Good morning.
Right.
Hey, Jack, I've kind of listened to you since 1965 on the radio station, followed you a bit. But never mind about that. There's 2 things. Luke is from Dutch descent with the Newfie accent, as far as you can make out.
Oh, you're all wrong. He's from a Bavarian family, and he definitely has a tinge of German accent. He's not Dutch.
It's not Dutch.
No way.
Okay. Second.
You've got no ear. You've got your ear. Your
Okay,
ear
here's
is a
another
tin.
one.
Your ear is a tin drum.
No, Jack, don't say that. Okay, here's one other thing.
You'll be telling me next time Polish.
No, I'm a crowd myself. Okay, listen. You had Youth in Trouble on for quite some time, but there's one organization or one group you have missed.
Who's that?
And that is Vancouver Challenge, or formerly known as Vancouver Teen Challenge.
No, I'm not one who's greatly into religious organizations in that field. Go ahead, please. Hello.
Hello.
How are you this morning?
Pretty good.
Good. Speak. Speak.
Jack,
Yes.
when Luke spoke about the metro station in Toronto,
Yeah, tell me about that.
would that be a subway station?
Yes, yes.
And they must have lived around the Bloor area.
Must have done. In a big old house with a grand piano in it.
Well, you see, there's so many big old houses around Bloor Street.
Music teachers? Surely you could find a music teacher who was there 12, 15 years ago. Surely you could track down the family. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could do it myself in a day and a half. You know, it's not difficult. And this Greta was obviously an accomplished musician.
She must have been, yeah.
That was her music Luke was playing on the little recorder this morning.
The type of music that she was teaching him, was classical.
Yeah.
It must have been that...
Well, we'll maybe put it on our national syndicated piece and turn up something in the east.
around the Bloor area. So if you advertise that, I think someone in Toronto...
Okie dokie. Thank you very much, old chap. Go ahead, please.
Yes, you remember, I think it was before you went on your holidays last year that you had that piece on the professor out there that pulled the scam on the computers.
Yes.
Well, I read an article in the paper the other day that stated that thing is just where you left it. It's nothing...
Actually, I covered it at the time.
There's been no hearings on it. He's still drawing and doing nothing.
At last report, he was drawing his full salary. It would seem that the mechanics of dealing with anything at the University of British Columbia will finally be reached and concluded the day after the second coming. And I agree with you on that entirely. The day after the second coming. That's not a bad remark. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mrs. Gray, and I belong to the BC Federation of Homeowners.
Yes, my dear.
We had a demonstration on Wednesday downtown at the Rentalsman Bureau. It's regarding they're putting the rents up on all the trailer pads.
I know that, my dear. I tell you what.
And today they were going to demonstrate at where Premier Bennett was at the BCI.
Well, look, if you'll hold on, I'll get somebody to talk to you off the air. Don't go away, because we're just coming up to the end of the program. And I'll be back after a commercial break. This woman's telling me she saw the blue bus with a German couple in it at Twisp in the Okanagan, just across, in the U.S. side, just across from Osoyoos last August. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Can't tell me any more than that, though.
Yeah, they were across the border. They were an older couple. Now.
Okay, hold on, my dear. We'll deal with that later on. Because if we could find the guy who bought that blue bus, he would know who sold it. Two mayors on Monday morning. Charles Royer, the mayor of Seattle, and an ex-mayor of Vancouver, I'm sorry. What's his name again? Jack Volrich. And I'll be back at wherever I'll be Monday morning at 9 a.m. precisely.
Brett Hecklin, Charlie Farquharson, Bruno Gerussi, Howie Mandel, Murray McLaughlin, Martin Mull, Terry David Mulligan, Monica Parker, John Rick.